full potential of the greatest change agent around, your own mind? I'm Chester Elton, and this is my co-author and dear friend, Adrian Gostick.
Well, thanks, Jess. Yeah, if you want to squeeze more time, money, and joy from every day, well, we're going to present some strategies today. And as always, we hope the time you spend with us will help reduce the stigma of anxiety at work and in your personal life.
And with us today is our new friend, Christina Curtis. She is the founder of Curtis Leadership Consulting. She earned her master's degree in organizational psychology and is certified in neuro leadership. A thought leader on motivation and goal attainment, she is the author of the new book, Choosing Greatness, an evidence-based approach to achieving exceptional outcomes. Christina, we're delighted to have you on the show. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Excited to be here.
Well, we are. We're thrilled to get the neuro leadership perspective here for our listeners. So, and you know, we're all hearing more today that our mental health is essential to performing our best. We see so much burnout, and it's just more logical that a healthier mind would lead to more success. But the complaint we hear is that I just don't have time to focus on my mental health. So what advice do you offer to the busy leaders, you know, we all work with who are, you know, they're genuinely busy and, you know, self-care like that may be more of a luxury. What do you respond to them?
Yeah, it's such a good point around there's no time. There's no time to take care of ourselves. Here's the challenge that I find, though. As a working parent and entrepreneur now for 20 years, I'm also super busy. 2 kids, 2 dogs, partner, life, and this business. And I found myself running nonstop, actually. I would even be, truth be told, on a date night, running to the bathroom to check email probably 10 years ago. Don't tell my husband. Hopefully he won't listen today. But then I realized there's a pattern of when I watch these people like Richard Branson, like Javier Rodriguez in the book, like the CEO of DaVita, the CEO of Overstock, Phyllis Yale, who's a senior advisor over at Bain Consulting. I started tracking what it is that these people who are achieving exceptional levels of both happiness and success are doing that I wasn't doing. And they were taking care of their brain. And that might sound silly at first, but what I mean by that is self-care is actually not a luxury. It's an absolute necessity for your brain to perform at its best because you only have so much cognitive bandwidth, so much brain power every day that's available. And if you don't take breaks and get the right amount of sleep and do the necessities that are required, have the discipline required around self-care that you do around energy expenditure or our to-do list, you're going to burn out. And all of us know that feeling when you have this like low grade buzz anxiety when you're going to sleep and when you wake up and you feel anxious. We all know that feeling. And the reality is when you're in a state of just depletion and worry, your brain does not activate the same parts required for critical thinking and creativity. It goes from goal-directed behavior to more of a self-protective state. And that's not where big goals are achieved. And so I really got clear. I learned the hard way, unfortunately, but the importance of self-care, it's a necessity. And we cover that in my book, Choosing Greatness, on how to choose self-care, how to set up your schedule in such a way that allows you to perform at your best.
You know, it is interesting because we're always making time for everything but that, right? Yeah. We'll add another hour to check the box on that to-do list and make sure it all gets done. And yet we don't take the time to make sure we check the box that says, I got enough sleep. You know, I ate well. I went for a walk. I got some exercise. You know, brings me to my question about this idea of striving for excellence versus striving for perfection. You know, you're striving for perfection. You're much less likely to take that time for self-care because you're perfecting every little thing you do. So walk us through the difference and how that can help us when we have setbacks and we come into hard times. Does that make sense?
Totally. And striving for perfection and excellence are not the same thing. So if you're striving for perfection, any deviation, any setback, anything that goes wrong, which by the way happens 100% of the time when you're playing a big game. So, or just in any day, nothing unfolds seamlessly. And so if you strive for perfection, any deviation is a failure. It's just, we internalize it as, there you go. See, I knew I couldn't do it. I knew I couldn't do it. And the worst part about that, I find, Chester, is when something goes wrong, we actually make it mean that there's something wrong with us.
Wow.
We internalize and collapse those two things together. Something went wrong. There's something wrong with me. Oh, there you go. I'm not good enough. There you go. I don't know what I'm doing. There you go. They're going to see it's all just fake. I don't have a clue what's going on. And instead, striving for excellence is just me showing up and growing every day. That's it. I am here today to grow on this podcast. I'm going to learn how to talk about different things in different ways and learn from you and your listeners by conversations afterwards. And meetings I'm going into, it's me going into those meetings to learn how to perform at my best. And hey, there's going to be setbacks because someone will ask a question I didn't think of, or the pace will become so intense in the call, I may miss something. But in excellence, you're just iterating. It's like, got it. Now I've learned that. My brain just got bigger. I grew a new neural connection because I learned something new. And so I focus on excellence. And I do find when I watch really high achievers, they're doing the same thing because, hey, the bigger game you play, the more setbacks you face. It just gets harder. The bigger goals you go after, the more challenges come. And I think about the fact that it's not that they enjoy mistakes more, right? The Olympic athletes I've worked with, they don't love mistakes more. They've just recognized that's part of the game. And so how they engage with it is, it's not about a perfect run. It's not about a perfect match. It's about figuring out in real time how to move through it really quickly and get back at it.
Yeah, it's interesting too. Yeah, because I've seen organizations that set, crazy high goals, and they know that we'll never really achieve them, maybe once every decade. But people aren't distressed about it. But then other organizations, they set pretty realistic goals. But if you miss them, you're dead, and you're out of there. And so it's just a different way of thinking about it. The bigger goals you have, the more going for the gold medal, as you say. So I want to get to the idea of how we get through stressful times, because one of the things you write about is you say, look, we only have 240 minutes, you define it, like 4 hours of energy a day to perform at its best. And, people are going, come on, I pay my people for 8 hours. You're telling me they're only giving me 4? So first off, why is that? And I do believe you, by the way. Why is that? And secondly, can we expand that window to perform at our best maybe a little longer?
Yeah. You know that feeling when you all of a sudden feel energized, fired up? It's like moment of clarity. You can take your to-do list and crush through 3/4 of it. And the day before you sort of maybe made it through 1. That's high octane thinking. That's what I call a hot spot. And the brain is actually wired to perform roughly right, scientists say, around 240 minutes of high octane thinking a day, where you're just at your sharpest. Think of it like filling your car up. When your tank, I'm not a car person, so my husband will kill me for using a car analogy, maybe. But when your car is full of gas and you're cruising on the highway, you're flying. If you forget to fill it up and suddenly it's empty, you're going to notice it's starting to sputter, and eventually you'll have to pull over to the side of the road. Not that I've ever done that more than once, unfortunately. But those hot spots, you got to know when you're at your best. So for me, I actually wake up at 5 a.m. and between 5 and 6, when my kids are not up yet and when the dogs are still willing to stay asleep, I'm revving. I'm like, I've got ideas coming. If you want a coaching session at that time, it's a good time to call. But I feel really fired up. If you ask me at 7 p.m. at night, though, to have a great insight, it's done. I'm not going to say anything intelligent. And so it's important to know where your hotspots are in the day. It's also important, if you want to extend them, to build in micro breaks, because we're just talking, it's like a muscle, right? If you say, Christina, how do I build my bicep? I'm not going to tell you to just flex that muscle with a 25-pound weight for 12 hours a day. It will give out. But if you do a couple reps, take a break, couple reps, take a break, and those reps, those sessions of intense activity are usually 30 to 40 minutes, they get outside. Then go for a quick 5-minute. I've got an executive who literally, he's the chief people officer at Neiman Marcus, literally puts into his calendar what he's going to do for that break time. His name is Eric Severson. He is potentially one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. He'll literally say, for these 5 minutes, I'm going outside. For these 5 minutes, I'm petting my dog. He's building in micro breaks to recharge so he can put more fuel in his tank. And then he's revving to go at a 4:00 call just the same way he was at 8 a.m.
That's kind of specificity is amazing. Clearly it works for him. And like you said, you're from 5 to 6. So it's important for us to find our own hotspots is what you're saying, right? Like I have a friend who gets up at 4 a.m. And so just out of curiosity, I tried that. It was horrible. It absolutely did not work for me.
Yeah. It's actually based on circadian rhythm and how your eyeballs process light, and it's genetically predisposed. And it doesn't change much over your lifetime. So I have clients that turn on at night. I have one client who we schedule calls at 8 p.m. because that's when she is revving. And I have to plan my days accordingly. But that's when she is literally popping out with ideas.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so you talk about reframing problems using curiosity. And I'm a big fan of curiosity, learning and growing and developing. Be curious about, the world around you. But adjusting the brain to interpret challenges as curiosity, that doesn't happen overnight, does it? So how do you begin to make that shift to treat challenges as learning experiences? Help us understand that.
Yeah. Well, the basis of this book, Choosing Greatness, is really around the concept that our time is limited. And when we move into a place of judgment about a problem, or we move into a place of opinion that limits our options, we're shortening our ability to live a fulfilling life. And I share this story with clients. My son is a rock star 15-year-old who is rowing and playing tennis and doing really well. But younger in life, he had some medical challenges. And we were in and out of the hospital for years. And one day we were up in the mountains, and he was around 8 years old, and it was raining outside in the mountains, October time frame. You think cold, miserable. And he goes, "Mom, can we go outside?" And I'm like, "Gosh, buddy, why would we want to go outside in October in the rain?" And being a cool mom, I'm like, "Totally, let's go." So I throw on my raincoat and we head out. And the rain is just coming down. We're about 500 feet from our place. And I turn around to say, "Hey, you're going to catch a cold if we stay out here. It's freezing." And he has taken his raincoat off. He's taken his T-shirt off. And he is just spinning in the rain, smiling bigger and bigger. And I said, "What are you doing, buddy?" And he looked up at me and he goes, "Mom, what if I never get to do this again?" And so for that little kid, he got curious about what it meant to spin in the rain and feel cold. I mean, that's curiosity at its best with the challenge where I was running. And so I think that has really changed the way I embrace my life. I will go into a board meeting and say, "I wonder how I can knock their socks off," instead of, "I'm terrified they're going to judge me and I'm going to fail." Mm-hmm. Or I'll go into a project and say, "I wonder how we can transform this whole team so that this is the best life each one of them has ever lived," versus, "Gosh, this is a massive cultural problem and I don't know how we're going to get out of it. We may fail." So curiosity, the power of a question, the power of what if I never get to do this again, change the way I see everything. We are here to learn and grow. We are here to learn and grow.
Well, Christina, how can people learn more about your important work?
Yeah. Choosing Greatness is a book that's now available at Barnes & Noble and Amazon and Tattered Cover, your independent bookstores find it. It's an evidence-based approach to achieving exceptional outcomes. You can also come check out my website, curtisleadership.com, and I'm on Instagram at what is my Instagram handle? Christina Curtis Official. So Christina Curtis, come check me out. I'd love to continue the conversation.
Awesome. Good. Okay. One of the things you talk about too is this productivity wall, when people, we've all, as writers, we've hit writer's block. We've hit this idea of productivity wall, and you just sort of, I don't want to do anything today. So any tricks that you share with maybe leaders or others that you've worked with when we're feeling that way?
Yeah. The first thing to recognize is your car is out of gas. If you keep driving, you're not going to get very far. So I do recommend choosing to interrupt that pattern by, for example, going outside. A 15-minute outdoor break versus a 15-minute indoor break has massive benefits for focus and attention. And so get outside. even if it's for 5 minutes. I've got one client who put her Peloton in the office, and instead of worrying about doing a 40-minute workout, she'll jump on it for 5 minutes just to get herself back into a mental frame of mind where she has energy again. Music is a lovely evidence-based way to generate a shift in moods. You know what's so simple? Water. I have to tell you, I think I went like a decade pretending to be a camel. I did not drink water at work. I was running and I'm like, I don't have time to get water. I now am very focused on having water around because it does impact your fatigue and your energy levels. So figure out what works for you. In the book, I cover 10 evidence-based approaches to how to boost your energy back up, and choose one to get yourself moving.
That is so interesting. We often look for the silver bullet that works for everybody. And of course, it doesn't exist, right? Find out what works for you. I just wanted to comment on the story about your little boy. That was very moving for me. We're here to learn and grow. And the power of a question, that so struck me. What if I never get to do this again? What if this is the only time I get to be here? I want to share a quick story with you. My wife and I, we go on these bike and barge trips, and they're amazing. You barge during the night, and then you get up and you ride your bikes all over the place. And we were on this one trip, and we was out in the countryside. It was a lovely European country, and it was a long ride at the end of the day, and I was really beat. And we could see the boat, but there was this giant cathedral. And Heidi says, let's ride up there. So we ride up and we look at this massive cathedral. She says, look at the top. And you can see these little colors like way up at the top. And she says, you know what that is? And I went, those are people. And then she looked at me and I went, no way am I going up 20,000 steps to get. She goes, we have to. And she said, we'll never be here again. I went, okay, fine. And you know what? It was unbelievable. I was so glad, because if I'd have been there by myself, there's no way I would have done that. The power of that question. What if we never come this way again?
And like Christina's son, did you take your shirt off up there?
and
Did you spin around? Did you spin around? Well, it's all how we frame it, though. And questions, one thing that's really useful when you are feeling anxious is to take it and frame it into a question. So instead of, gosh, I'm really struggling with this presentation I have coming up in 3 weeks, and I'm anxious already. And even though there's no podium in sight, I'm sweating about it and I'm nervous. Instead of looking at it through that lens, reframe it as a question, which is, like I said, how can I blow their socks off? Or more importantly, what do they really need to learn from what I'm sharing that will change their lives? Or what's exciting about having this time with this group? So keep asking yourself questions so that instead of the brain focusing on its prehistoric wiring of fight or flight, it's shifting to connection, growth, learning, helping others. You're no longer the focus if you're saying, what do they need to know? What can I share with them? That's a whole different mind frame, and will set your brain up for success.
That is so powerful. Thank you so much. Hey, the pandemic shifted a lot of things. I mean, we always say unprecedented, never going to happen again, and on and on and on, right? So what have you learned in your conversations with some of those big name leaders that you mentioned, the Olympic athletes and so on, that you interviewed for the book, that is a little maybe new and exciting that maybe you weren't thinking about just a few years ago? Were there any revelations?
Yeah, gosh, the pandemic shifted a lot for all of us, stuff I don't think we'll even realize until we look back in time. But one of the biggest pivots that has happened in the past 3 years is this need to reconnect with who we are and our purpose, this importance of connection with ourselves and with our communities. I see it happening a lot where people are now needing to say, I don't just want a job. I don't want a job where I'm told what to do. I want to be part of something. I want to be building towards something. And I think leaders, importantly, the clients that I work with who are really leaning in here, are changing the conversation from work getting done to building together. What are we building together? And for me personally, that was a really important shift. I never enjoyed the feeling of being a cog in the wheel. That there couldn't be a more demotivating concept for me. And now I'm clear on the importance of being a present mom and a really successful entrepreneur. Holding both of those things simultaneously is possible now that we're looking at it through a different lens.
Yeah, I love that idea. What are we building together? Yeah, versus, what are we going to get done today? Or even, who are we going to serve? It's really, what are we going to do together? And what's our purpose? Why are we here? I love that. Okay, we're always interested, Christina, and you've mentioned a few already with your, with nature, et cetera, going for walks. We're interested in the self-care tactics of successful people like you that have a lot going. So walk us through a few practices you found that help you thrive.
Yeah, and self-care is different for everyone. What fires me up is definitely not what fires up others in my life, right? It's very personal. And so it's useful to take out a sheet of paper and make a list. Just start writing down the things that bring you energy. That's how you know if you're taking care of yourself. What brings me a sense of grounded energy? Not always excitability, but just, yes, I'm here. I feel recharged. So for some people, that's a walk. And for others, a walk sounds absolutely terribly painful. And so they may be more interested in going out with friends. And so for me personally, I wake up every day and get in the mind frame of energy. What energy do I want to bring to my day? What purpose is that energy going to bring? Who am I spending time with in these meetings? And what do we want to achieve together? That's very inspiring for me. And so it fires me up. And the other thing I do is I'm by nighttime, I'm not effective. And so I do take downtime. I used to not. I used to work until 10 or 11 at night. And my experience was I would wake up depleted, and it became this flywheel where I actually didn't feel energized and my results suffered. You can do it all. You can do it all for yourself and others. You can't do it all and drive exceptional results. And so learning to say no to certain things, whether it's a social function, whether it's a family dinner, whether it's a work project that I want to push off until another day, I can achieve much higher results if I'm scrutinizing how my calendar looks and where those times for self-care are woven in. And I've got one executive client who said it best: if you ask me a question and I don't have an answer and I just sit there and stare at you, it's a good sign I've beaten up my brain too far and I need to take a break.
I'm done. And I think on that too, you need to be careful to say yes to certain things and not say no. For example, the other night, my wife said, "Hey, can you clean the kitchen for me and do the dishes?" And I said, "No." It was a big mistake. That was a big mistake.
Yeah, but it might be. I mean, I did this. It's funny you say that. I did the same thing last night. We finished dinner and I said, let's just sit down for 30 minutes and chill. And then we'll clean the dishes, because I was so depleted. I was so tired after everything I'd done, and I'd worked out and I was complete. And so we did. We got the dishes done. It's just we got it done 30 minutes later with no guilt. There's no guilt. There's no need for guilt. This is what would serve us best. I'm
going to remember that. I'm not going to do the dishes now. I'll do them later. Yeah, that's a great tip. You have saved my marriage. Thank you, Christina. Hey, great conversation. If you had one or two things you wanted people to take away, the one or two nuggets that you want people to remember, what might they be?
Yeah. Don't wait for great to come. Don't wait for great to come. It's not... I promise you, it's not somewhere off in the future that one day it just arrives. It's here today. And having gone through the experiences I've gone through in life of almost losing a kiddo, I will tell you, today you have everything you need to make it great. Ask for help. Find the connections that will get you there. Build your network. Focus on your skills. And show up in a way that makes others feel great around you, and it will be mirrored back. We'll talk more about that in the book if you're interested in picking it up, Choosing Greatness. But this is accessible to you today. No need to wait.
That is beautiful. Our guest today has been the amazing Christina Curtis. As she said, pick up her book, Choosing Greatness, an evidence-based approach to achieving exceptional outcomes. And if I got this right, it's curtisleadership.com for everything you'd ever want to know. Christina, you've been a delight. Thanks for sharing your energy and your wisdom with our listeners. It has really been a joy to have you on the podcast.
Thanks so much for having me.
Adrian, great energy, great knowledge, a great book that you and I'll both have to buy. Tell me, what were some of your key takeaways?
Well, look, we talk a lot about this, but really was, hearing the neurological point of view of we got to take better care of our brains. We live with low-grade anxiety. We have, worry. The brain isn't doing its best work when we're in the self-protective state. So we've got to start thinking a lot more about not only our physical health, how we sleep, how we eat, but how our brains are doing. I think it's a really good reminder.
Yeah, she really got into the science of the whole thing. Was really enlightening. My first takeaway was everybody has the same problem. We've got no time. We've got time to stay up late and keep, plugging away. We don't have time to do the basics, the essentials that keep us sharp. And I love that she didn't just kind of come to that conclusion. She said, look, I've interviewed all kinds of really high achievers, and they all had that in common, that they took time to stay in a good state of mind and good mental health. That was a great takeaway for me.
It was. There's one of the things, too, I heard that I think it's really important is the bigger goals we have, the more we're going to fail. And it's okay. Right. We're learning as we're going. And it's all right to have those big, audacious goals. Nothing wrong with that. Another thing that I thought was really interesting that she talks about, look, our brain is wired to perform at a high octane 240 minutes a day. Doesn't mean we go shut down and just sit on the couch for the other, 22 hours a day, or 20 hours a day. But we have times where we can do our best work. So do we know when that is? For me, it's the morning. I do good work in the morning, and I know that, and I plan around that. But are we thinking about that? And are we stretching it by maybe doing some micro breaks and figuring out what we can do to keep ourselves going a little longer?
Exactly. That micro break thing was great. And the specificity that her one executive got to was unbelievable, right? I'm going to pet the dog for 5 minutes. I'm going to go for a walk for 5 minutes. I mean, when you get to that, sort of specificity, I think it's pretty great. Just that idea that, look, I know I'm running low. Refuel. How do I refuel? Listening to music is one that was an interesting takeaway for me. And, not just a walk or a meal or whatever. Maybe it's a 5-minute podcast or a 10-minute meditation or music. Figure out what it is that works for you. And then the power of questions really, really struck me. Her little boy said, what if I never get to do this again? Mm-hmm. What if I never pass this way again? What will I regret? I don't want to have any regrets. I'm going to climb to the top of the cathedral. I'm going to go for that walk. I'm going to turn off my phone. Yeah. I'm going to enjoy the blossoms. And, springtime is always such a wonderful time for riots of colors and flowers and just really take a deep breath. Those micro breaks were really a big takeaway for me.
Well, yeah, as well as, just this kind of power of the question. Because sometimes, you and I will go and we'll present in front of, whether it's a couple of hundred executives or a couple of thousand, we're about to go up on stage. And sometimes your head can get ahead of you and you start thinking, well, what if I fail? Oh my gosh, these are people with jobs. They have business suits. And you start getting yourself freaked out instead of thinking, as she said, well, what do they really need to learn? And putting yourself in their shoes and changing the thinking as we go through these things. I think that kind of reframing can be really powerful in our lives. Like the questions of, what if I never walk this way again? Well, what if I don't go out and do my best for this group? And, I think that kind of reframing is really powerful.
Yeah. What can I do to blow their socks off? Mm-hmm. How can we make connections? And then that whole idea that we're in this life to learn and grow, to learn and grow. That was a moment in the podcast where I really took a deep breath and went, that's a great way to reframe things. Yeah. Why are we here? What's it all about? And if we're here to learn and grow, if we're here to make connections, if we're here to be curious, those are great ways to reframe and go after it. Well, I'll let you have the last aha, Adrian. Bring us home.
Yeah, I think the last one was, I love this idea of make a list of what brings me energy. Not we make so many lists. What do I want to accomplish? What do I want to this, that, and the other? No. What brings me energy? And really thinking through that. I think that's really powerful. So that's my last takeaway. I want to, thank our guest, Christina Curtis, for being on the show today, for our producer, Brent Klein, who brings all this together, to Christy Lawrence, who helps us find amazing guests, and all of you who've listened in.
And if you like the podcast, please share it. We'd also love you to visit thecultureworks.com for some free resources to help you and your team and your culture thrive. And of course, we love speaking to audiences, as Adrian mentioned, and we do around the world. So whether it's virtual or in person on the topics of culture, teamwork, resilience, mental health, give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about your event. And as Christina said, don't wait for great to come. It's here today. Ask for help. Show up. Greatness is here. Don't miss it. Well, that's our story, and we're sticking to it. Adrian, as we close, you always say...
Well, thanks everybody for joining us. And until next time, we wish you the best of mental health.